Just me, God, and creation. This is a real church. If you do go to a physical church, I pray that you have discernment and you're not misled by false teachings within the institutionalized physical churches, right? Institutionalized Christianity. And I pray that if you wish to continue to go to church because you do benefit in some way from the community of this church you attend, that you do so, again, praying for and seeking out discernment, so as to, again, not be misled, but still benefit from the community that you have. But also, make sure that if you are doing this, regardless, that you come out here into God's creation, wherever you're able to, and immerse yourself in God's creation. Because this is the true temple of God. Well, we are the stones of the temple of God. We are temples of God's Spirit. But this is our place of worship and connection to God. The reason churches used to be built with sacred geometry and principles is because the cathedrals and churches that were created in this manner reflected this essence, the energy, the perfect harmonious pattern of God's creation. So cathedrals and beautiful churches are made in the same pattern as God's creation, made the same way that God created his universe. And that's why they're beautiful places and they have that sense of awe and majesty. Even Jesus himself would always go off into nature to spend time with the Father. He didn't go to the synagogues or the temples to pray and get close to the Father. He went to the synagogue and the temple to rebuke those who were teaching false doctrine within the synagogues and the temple. That's the only reason the Son of God went to the church, the physical buildings, to call them out and rebuke them. But when Jesus Christ, the Son of God, God in flesh, wanted to have communion with himself in the purity of his own eternal presence and power, he would go off into nature, into God's creation by himself. So make sure, even if you are still attending physical churches, not for the doctrine, because if you are, you're being misled, but if you're going for the community, you keep discernment so you're not misled, and you prioritize your time of worship and connection to God right? To being in places like this, in God's creation, right? So you can have your community in the physical building, but you can't be in the presence of God as powerfully and directly as you can be by just being in God's creation. This is actually an old fireplace. It was positioned differently, but it's been busted up a little bit. I had a nice chimney and everything. Like, it was really nice. This platform here you can see I made. It used to be up here about a story and a half high. So that was my treehouse platform. It was up in the trees. And then I had another little like cabin section here with this fireplace was inside, and like another little shelter area here that was raised a few feet off the ground with like a deck platform essentially, because this actually connects to a swamp, to a creek which runs out to the river and to the ocean. And in heavy rain, this area actually floods. So this area will be about a few feet, like knee to waist high flood water, which literally connects through to the creek, to the river, to the ocean when it's heavy rain. So I had to actually build my floor a few feet off of the ground with a deck. And then I had a platform up here. And there was a couple of times where it actually got flooded. There was one time I was here with another individual, a homeless youth who had just gotten out of prison, and I took him under my wing. I was discipling him. I was looking after him, making sure he was fed and had, he was warm at night, he had somewhere comfortable to sleep, etc. I was like a father figure, a mentor, big brother for him. And we were camped out here in a very, very heavy storm. It was intense. So this platform was about here in these trees, roofed off, but our roof was ripping up, tarps going crazy. Everything was completely soaked from weeks of rain, the ground soaked. All right, it was starting to flood out here, and everything was completely drenched. All right, so even though we had shelter and roofs, the rain was basically coming in sideways, like smashing down like a bathtub pour, like a waterfall of water, coming horizontally in, soaking everything. So my whole platform, my bed, everything completely soaked, everything underneath. I had like a kitchen set up and everything, a little like lounge area and whatnot, and a little wash area, and I had an actual like toilet room out the back, a bathroom out the back, and a separate little shelter, like a just like a tent with no floor essentially. Digging holes in the ground, and it was a little actual private little setup bathroom, everything. Like, so everything was completely soaked. All we had was a soaked wool blanket, okay? And we're basically naked because all of our clothing completely soaked. So we're laying on the floor just here, where there was a little bit of a tarp left above us, up here, just protecting us. And I had another tarp over here somewhere where I had some spare firewood wrapped up in the tarp, okay? But literally everything else in the whole forest was soaked and wet, and nothing could start a fire. But you see, these are paper bark trees, all right? Even if it's been flooding and raining, if you rip deep enough into the paper bark tree, this one's a bit bare, but if you can see here, you can tear into the layers here, and you can actually get further in and in and in, and you can get down to dry pieces underneath. And it's so flammable, even if it is slightly damp. There's a technique, you tear it up kind of like into strips. This the native way, Aboriginal native way. You tear it into strips essentially, and then a lot more than this, and then you twist it up, and so it cracks open the fibres like this, and then you'll see how fast this lights. Right, I just hold it near the fire and instantly. Okay, so we've got some paper bark, my firewood that was stored away and still dry. We started a fire here, piled up firewood, just managed to get a fire going, and we were laying here completely soaked on wet floor on just a wool blanket on the floor, sharing a wool blanket, sleeping next to each other on the floor. Everything completely soaked, raining heavier than you can imagine all night long. And we pass out here on the floor, we pray to the Father, we pray to God and Christ to protect us through the night, and we just fall asleep peacefully, all right, without any care or worry. Now in the morning, so we're laying here, okay, it's a slight slope, see it kind of dips down a bit here, so we're laying here with our heads around here, up near the trees here, this tree line in between, so head here, we're laying, my young fella here next to me, this lad I'm looking after, me here, okay? We wake up and we're flooded. We wake up underwater and just our heads are above water. In the morning, the sun's coming out, okay? The rain stopped, the sun is breaking through the tree line, all right? Beautiful sunrise, the light shining through the leaves. It was absolutely beautiful. It was like, you know, an awe-inspiring moment, all right? The glory of God was present before us and evident. And we literally woke up on the floor here with our heads just out of the water, our bodies underwater, but get this. There was like log, we had like, it was pretty decent sized logs, say like these guys over here. I'll show you. Right. See this? Nice big thick fella, right? Logs like this piled up like almost TP'd over each other, okay? Similar to this fashion. Except one of the logs was about this high, right? Just coming out, so about 2 feet high, about 1.5 feet. Water was about 1 foot high, and just one log was still poking out of the water. So this is all underwater here, and one log is just poking out, our fire's poking out. And there was a flame, a strong flame, okay, a big strong flame burning on this log in a flood. So our fire kept burning all through the night and was still burning, was still alight, keeping us warm, okay, under flood water. Our fire kept burning under flood water. And we woke up under flood water with just our heads poking out and just this flame poking out of the water above the fire. And we were perfectly refreshed. We like, it was the roughest night's sleep ever, but we woke up like babies, refreshed, like we were born again, fully renewed, full strength, full vitality, no pain, no ache, nothing. The strength of, like the vitality of, of being in your prime or like a child. We could just spring up like a child and run and move about like we had that much energy, we were that replenished. So it wasn't just from our sleep. We were replenished by God as we slept. Our fire was literally burning on top of flood water, protected by God. We were under flood water when we woke up, just our heads poking out of the water, protected by God. And because tea tree seeps into this creek, so this is a tea tree swamp, right? So it's very medicinal, natural oil. The water we woke up in was actually like a tea tree bath. And even though we were underwater through the night, we were warm. So our fire kept burning on top of floodwater, and we were warm, and we woke up refreshed, even though we slept in a flood, underwater. It was incredible. But the thing is, the thing I forgot to mention before that I'll throw in now is that if you're unaware, I'm actually a very serious Christian, a very serious disciple of Christ, and I've actually sold all my possessions multiple times, and I've spent most of my life living in places like this by myself. And the story I just shared, the miracles that unfolded, multiple miracles, and the presence and glory of God descending upon us from heaven. Okay? Because I live this way, and I encourage everyone to have the faith to step out and live as Christ has called us to. Sell all your possessions, wander, okay, like Christ did and the apostles, and let God take you where he wants you to go. Okay? And God will use you for magnificent things, great things. And like I was saying, just like this example the testimony I just shared of the glory and protection of God. Okay? Even over natural forces like floods and things. God literally protects, just like Jesus walked across the water. Okay? God has power over all things and literally performed a miracle and protected us while we slept in a flood underwater, and also ensured through a miracle that our fire kept burning through the night until the morning. So it was still there when we woke up, burning on top of a foot of flood water. Okay? But if you actually step out and have faith and let God just take you where he wants you to take you, okay, and you sell all your possessions and you become an apostle or a disciple of Christ, okay, living like Christ and his apostles did, his disciples, then these types of miracles will become sometimes daily events, sometimes weekly, okay? At least fortnightly miracles, okay? You'll have some type of miraculous testimony or story, like I just explained, like God protecting you, sleeping under flood water, and waking up underneath in a flooded, with just your heads poking out, and fire burning on top of a foot of flood water in front of you. And you're more rested than you've ever been, sleeping in the most comfortable bed you could possibly imagine and having the best sleep you could ever imagine. Times the rest and the vitality that you have waking up from the best, most comfortable possible sleep you could ever imagine, times that by like 10, literally, all right? And that type of thing, if you actually walk with faith in the authority of Christ that he has given us, and have faith in the Father, that you don't need money, you don't need to worry about anything, you don't need material possessions, you don't need a house. I literally slept on a fucking platform, I made myself a tree house. I slept on the floor underneath flood water. You can literally just sleep anywhere like the disciples did, like Christ did, and God will bless you, and you will have testimonies to share of miracles like this unfolding non-stop. Okay? Literal miracles. But if you don't step out and you're worried about making your income and supporting yourself, and like Jesus said not to, all right? So you're worrying about tomorrow, you're storing up treasures for yourself on the earth, even though you don't know when God's going to take you from this world. Could be tonight. So everything you're saving is pointless. Yeah? Jesus said all of this to us, yet still people want to hold on and not have that faith to just rely on the Father, okay? Like Jesus said to the disciples, you don't even need money. And when they did need a bit of money, and Peter was like, Jesus, what are we going to do? How are we going to get money? Jesus just said, fish, pull the fish out, and there'll be gold inside in the fish. And they're just like, what? And they catch a fish, and then it's fucking full of gold, and they're rich, and they buy everything they need. Okay, so if you actually step out and live the way God has called us to live, the way Christ asked us to live and have faith in the Father, you literally don't even need money. You can actually just catch a fish and pull a $100 note out of the fish. Like, God can just manifest whatever you need when you need it. And if it doesn't come like that, it will come through some person who's influenced by an angel or by the Spirit of God, the Holy Spirit, to actually assist you in some way. Okay? And it will be like, you won't have to, depends on the situation, maybe you will beg or whatever, because it's actually a way that it's a spiritual practice to beg, all right, to take alms. Because you have to humble yourself, all right? If you're too prideful, it's a lot easier just to get a job than it is to beg. It's actually harder to be a beggar for most people than it is just to get a job, because they have too much pride. They can't humble themselves to sit on the floor below everybody and beg for food, and to go hungry if people won't support them. Okay, to be reliant on others, to let go, to surrender and not have control. Most people have too much pride. So it's actually a blessing to beg. But at the same time, you will have miracles unfold where you don't have to beg at all. God will tell you, go here, sit under this tree, and you'll go and sit under the tree. And then someone will come up and say, hey, here's $50, and walk away. Okay? And it will be after you're hungry, or you want something. You ask the Father, hey, God, can I please have, I appreciate some money or this thing. Money so I can get this thing or this thing. And then sometimes God will literally say, okay, we'll go for a walk, sit at that tree. And then literally someone will just walk up out of nowhere, someone you've never met before. You might never see him again in your life. And they'll just walk straight up and be like, hey, here's $50. Or they'll, maybe if they don't do that, they'll say, hey, do you need some money? Do you need this or that? Or what? And then they'll pull it out and say, hey, here's $50. And you'll even be saying, no, I'm all right, thank you. It's okay. And they'll force it into your hand. They will literally force it into your hand and make you take it. So there'll be times where God calls you to beg and humble yourself and take alms. And then there'll be times when God will intervene and he will actually just have people intercede and come to you and bless you directly on his behalf.